I've seen 5 movies since my last movie review, so let's start trying to churn out some of these reviews. And we'll start with the supposed die-hard clone, Skyscraper. Skyscraper is the latest action movie starring The Rock, starring Dwayne Johnson, and many people believe that maybe this could be a die-hard clone because we got bad guys in a building, The Rock in the building taking down these bad guys trying to save his loved ones. I feel Skyscraper does enough different things that when I came out of the theater I didn't feel like it was a die-hard clone. But let's talk about the plot. The Rock plays a former, I believe, FBI agent, but after an explosion and after the loss of his leg, and he's a security consultant for this new building that's being made, this huge skyscraper, state-of-the-art in China, and he's there to inspect the building, inspect the security, make sure everything's all good and safe. But after some twists and turns and double crosses, bad guys infiltrate the building. His family is in danger, the building's on fire. He has to jump into the skyscraper in order to save his family, stop the terrorists, and save the day. There's more to it than that, but I'd rather not spoil too much of it because I didn't know too much about it going in. I will say though, as I was watching it, everything was very predictable, so there wasn't any big twists and turns that I thought were major, but I feel that some people who don't watch enough action movies might not see the twists and turns coming. Might not. I wasn't expecting too much from Skyscraper, and honestly I don't think anyone should. It looked like it was just going to be another really fun but dumb action movie, and there were a few things in the trailer that made me question whether this might be a so bad it's good type of film, but for the most part I'd say it's competent. But let's talk about the good things first. First off, obviously The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is a very good, very charismatic actor, and even when he has roles that there's not a lot to him, or not a lot to the character, especially like Skyscraper, he still gives it his all. He still is very charismatic enough that he overcomes the generic character. Basically, he is the generic hero character that will do anything to save his family, and The Rock did a good job at that character and brought a little bit more to the character than that was probably on the script. The main thing to make this type of character work is I did feel the chemistry between him and his wife and the children, and it made me really believe that yes, he's going to do anything to save his kids, his family, and I felt something between all of them. Even the little banter that happens before shit hits the fan, there was chemistry between the entire family and it was charming. One of the things I liked about his character in this movie that I don't see a lot in Dwayne Johnson action movies is he gets beat up a lot in this movie. He gets his ass kicked a few times. Usually he's this big unstoppable force, and it did feel a little weird that that this big dude was getting beat up by a bunch of different people. But it was believable enough, especially with him having a fake leg. I think they could have done a little bit better with this aspect of the movie, had him beat up even more, but overall it was enough to humanize him a little bit in this movie. I do like the intro of this movie. I like how it starts off with the mission that goes bad that ends up causing him to lose his leg. I like the whole aspect of that entire scene. I like the camera work of that scene. It was a really solid, strong scene, or beginning scene. I do wish I would have seen the explosion, but this was a PG-13 movie, and so throughout this movie it did feel like they were trying to cut out a lot of the violence or trying to shy away from some of the brutal, violent stuff that happens in this movie, just so they can sell it as a PG-13 movie. This probably would have been better as an R and actually have some of the brutality in it. It would have made the intro scene a lot stronger if we saw the explosion and the aftermath and how it could really mess him up. Instead, what happens is the explosion happens, it completely flashes to white, and then he's in the hospital where he meets his wife, or meets the person that he ends up marrying. But other than that, I thought it was a really strong beginning. There was one particular fight scene that I did like in this movie, and it's the first fight that Dwayne Johnson gets in. I won't talk too much about it because it has spoilers, even though you can see it coming a mile away in this movie, because the movie makes sure that you know that something is shady about this one character. But even then, I won't spoil it too much. But even though it's been 2 weeks now since it's been out, since I'm actually filming this. Anyway, the first fight scene in the apartment with him and another guy, I thought it was really good, and I thought the choreography was good. I thought the way they used the house and the objects is really good, really brutal, really fun. Again, I do wish it could have went for the R rating and made it even crazier and more brutal. And I wasn't a fan of the camera work and the editing in this movie, because the camera work and editing of this scene really made the scene look a little bit more blah than it should have. One of the things this movie does ridiculously well is dealing with the heights in this movie. When he has to scale the building, when he has to jump into the skyscraper, when the family has to cross a beam and fire is just blazing down below them. Now granted, a lot of this is CGI, and the CGI isn't all that good in this movie. It's just pretty bland and generic, where it's not fake enough to be horribly bad, but fake enough not to be good, and to feel a little cartoony. And they really milk those height scenes. Unfortunately, there's only about 2 times where he has to actually scale the building, and 1 extra time when the family has to cross a beam. Unfortunately, they are the best parts of the movie, but unfortunately there's very few moments in this movie that deal with that aspect of the film. And finally, the moment we've been waiting in the trailer where everything didn't seem right, where we're asking where the hell he's jumping to, that's actually done pretty well in the movie. It's like the trailer missed the crucial moment that would make that scene make sense. Oh, and I do have to hand it to the film, once the action starts, it never stops. So if you're looking for a movie where it's just non-stop action, Skyscraper is one of those films. I have very mixed feelings when it comes to all the other action in this movie. Like I said, the suspenseful stuff, the heights, that's all done really well. And the fight scene at the beginning, I did enjoy. The encounter that caused him to lose his leg is done really well. Unfortunately, any of the other fights or gunfights in this movie is just pretty bland, generic, run-of-the-mill type action. And it's edited and filmed in a way that is cut and choppy, a little shaky cam here and there, I think, and just typical filmed action. Nothing stylish, nothing handled well enough to really merit, wow, that's really great action. No, it's just pretty bland for the most part. Even though it's a non-stop action movie, most of the action is just sort of just below serviceable. Nothing really bad and horrible, just below serviceable, I feel. But anyone not too picky about their action and not looking for something absolutely great might still have an enjoyable time with this movie. Pretty much every character in this movie is pretty generic as well. They're just stereotypical characters you'd find in this type of action movie, and this movie has a lot of different action and almost trying to have a smorgasbord of action genres. For the most part, the villains are pretty bland and forgettable. There's pretty much just 3 villains that are noteworthy, and then all the other villains in this movie are just part of the main crew and don't have a personality. They're just like extras in this film, basically. And the 3 notable ones is one of the guys that backstabs, which is revealed in the trailer, no less. An Asian female character that's really badass and does a lot of shoots with a silent pistol and knows martial arts and basically is just your badass female villain, but again, there's nothing to her at all except for just looking cool and doing action stuff that's not filmed all that well and not edited that well to make it look cool. And then of course our main villain, who is just fine, I guess. There's really almost no personality to the villains, but then again there's no personality that much for a lot of the main characters, or a lot of the characters in general. Also, despite this being a smorgasbord of different action genres, it is very predictable, and I saw all the twists coming a mile away. Granted, it sets them up pretty well to the point where it almost feels like they aren't twists at all. You know, it's like that kind of twist where they set everything so obvious that clearly it's not a twist for us, just a twist for the characters. But even so, that made the movie a little bit more dull and a little bit more boring. Granted, you can still have a really fun, really awesome, predictable movie, but usually there's something more to it than that helps you become entertained. Basically, every time there's a person that betrays a person in this film, I knew exactly, okay, that's going to be our betrayer. Yep, I actually saw him in the trailer being a betrayer, and everything he said makes me believe, yeah, he's going to be a betrayer. I'm actually kind of surprised because there's 2 double crosses in this movie, and I thought there was going to be a third one, because the 2 characters that double cross people in the first 2 acts of this movie do the same thing as a third character, and that third character, I was actually surprised when that third character wasn't a betrayer, because she pretty much acted the same exact way as betrayer number 2. Now, I will say that the way the script is handled in this movie, almost everything that is set up in this movie, especially set up in the intro, all has a payoff in this movie, and all actually is relevant to the conclusion of the film. In that kind of way, it is kind of good writing, because everything has a purpose, everything has meaning, and everything has a reaction, or everything is set up and has a payoff. In that sense, it's good writing. Unfortunately, in this movie, a lot of the payoff that happens is just plain ridiculous, stupid, and just random. Well, not random, just, I can't believe this movie did this sort of thing. Like when the movie begins with our family after the introduction, and The Rock or Dwayne Johnson is talking to his wife, and she wants him to fix her phone, her iPad, or one of the things, and he keeps telling, oh, just reset it, and this little charming banter between the 2 of them. But as the movie started wrapping up, I realized, oh my God, that's going to have a payoff in this, isn't it? That was set up for the ending and makes the ending all the more ridiculous. Sort of so bad it's good way. To be honest, there's plenty of things at the end of this movie that made me upset or made me laugh out loud at how ridiculous and how stupid a lot of the things at the ending is. There is one thing at the ending that I did laugh, but mainly because it was so sweet and so awesome, is that The Rock gets to kill one of the bad guys with a frickin' sword. That's actually pretty epic. Not any of the main villains, but just a random villain he kills with the sword. And honestly, that's all I really have to say about Skyscraper. It's non-stop action, but a lot of the action is just sort of mediocre, bland, and generic. It does have Dwayne Johnson in it. It does have a few good scenes. It actually does have good height scenes, or scenes where the character is in peril because he's in super high heights. But overall, it's a pretty average film, in my opinion. A lot of other people will probably have more fun, especially if they don't see a lot of action movies or don't see a lot of the really epic, amazing action movies that I have seen that have pretty much spoiled any just normal, regular action movie nowadays. Because it's like, if you've seen something like John Wick or Fury Road or some other epic action movies in that scale, it really makes any mediocre action movie feel far less superior. And granted, I know not every action movie can live up to that type of level, but it's still, it makes it feel like, it makes me watch the movie and feel, I've seen this kind of action done a lot better. But overall, I was still entertained. I wasn't bored with this movie, and there's a few really funny, so bad it's good moments. It's just all towards the end mainly. And for the most part, like I said, it's kind of average, so I'm going to give Skyscraper 2.5 stars. So, did you see Skyscraper? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews or countdowns of this year or previous years, whatever you'd like. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.